All right, what's going on? This is Billy Stanley and Joe Sims with Rare Elvis Photos. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Elvis birthday, and what a sad day on the 12th. We all
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, it was. I still find it hard to believe. It's been 2 years and I still don't believe it. I mean, I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around that, that Lisa's gone. I mean, I take comfort in knowing that she's with her daddy. So, that's good. But, she was just so young, well, so was her dad, but, and I mean, I remember when she came, when she first came from the hospital to Graceland, me, Rick, and David, there was that picture of us three holding her. And, those 9 years that she was there with Elvis, uh, she was the little, she lit up Graceland, that's for sure. And, she was just such a little sweetheart. I, I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around her being gone. I have a hard time with that. But,
Yeah, I mean, 54 is very young. Of course, Elvis, passed to 42.
yeah,
In her book, From Here to the Great Unknown, that was taken from her tapes. She talked about how precocious she was and how rebellious she was as a child, and how she would take cameras from people that were leaning over the fence that were saying, "Hey, take 20 bucks if you can just take a picture of your dad for me." And then she'd take a picture of the ground, and take, so
yeah.
tell us some of your memories. I mean, you said she was a very sweet girl. I'm sure she was.
Well, she
Uh,
was, but I mean, she was like her dad too. I mean, but she was, the thing that got me was she caught on I mean, at a very early age, where she would threaten, I'm gonna tell my dad, and get you fired. Because she knew how people were. I mean, they do anything Elvis says. So, yeah, she thought, well, you got to do the same thing I tell you to do. But, I remember one time we were sitting in the basement and I was playing a song and I just finished playing Kiss and because she really loved Kiss. And so I had some friends down, we were shooting pool and she kept coming in. I want to hear this. I want to hear it. I said, sweetie, we already played it once. Right now we'll get back around to it later on. And she got upset. She said, well, I'm gonna go tell my daddy and he'll fire you. I said, I don't work for your daddy. So, you fire me. He just kind of turned around, walked away. But then she come back a little bit later, and she wanted to know if she could play pool with us. And sure, come on. But uh, she was Elvis's daughter, that's for sure. Now, speaking of that, I mean, there's no mistaking whose little girl that was right there. She looked just like him. So, and and we go into this. I'll, well, Elvis's supposedly other children, okay?
okay.
And now there you got some feedback from some people, and let me explain to you why you got a little feedback. Every year we hear something new. Every year somebody else is coming up and say, "Oh, I'm Elvis's child." I mean, it's so old to us now. We've heard it ever since he passed away, and it's okay. Now, how many years has that been? Every year somebody's coming out saying the same thing. And the way I look at it is, okay, it's like going to court. Okay, the burden of proof is on you. Show it, prove it. If you are, prove it. And then that's where I leave it. That's why you don't hear me. I don't comment on all these people. I mean, trust me, I've seen them. They come. I mean, there was one that lives in Nashville. Come up and said Uncle Billy to me once, and I said, "Don't ever do that again." I
Who
said,
are you?
I said,
Yeah.
"Don't ever do that again." I said, "Uh-uh." I mean, because they make up a story. Well, Elvis snuck away when he was this year old, that year. People forget about what Gladys was. Gladys was a hawk with Elvis. I mean, she used to follow him to school. That embarrassed him. He would turn around and see her hiding behind a tree or something when he was walking to
And,
school.
and that's a fair point. You and I have talked a little bit about this offline because you said, "Hey, Joe, I know you do a lot of videos in this Desiree person."
Yeah.
I
And I
think,
mean, and you're entitled to your belief. And like
yeah, yeah.
I saw that you did say that and that me and you are still friends. Yeah, because friends can disagree. It's okay. You
Yeah.
know, I don't have to believe everything. I mean,
No, and like you said, and to be fair to you and to Billy Smith and all the rest of Elvis's family, they have heard this guy's Elvis's son, this girl is Elvis's daughter. I mean, the reason I've kind of continued the series is because I found some evidence that in 1953 Elvis did hitchhike 250 miles, and there's witnesses, including Jimmy Snow, Hank Snow's son, that he actually hitchhiked when he was in high school, and he spent a day down there in Meridian, Mississippi, at the festival to try to play the talent show. So there's enough evidence for me that he could have traveled around in '53, and if he did, I mean, Elvis, like you said, when we talked, Elvis was not a hound dog mostly. He was a very considerate guy, liked to make out. He wasn't trying to have intimate relationships with everybody in the world. That's just
Exactly.
that's not the way he was.
Because
So
talk to a lot of girls, they'll tell you right off the bat, he wanted to read the Bible. It was like, okay, I said, well, why don't you say that when people are interviewed? Oh, well, they don't want to hear that. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's on you then.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. To bring it up a little bit, I did watch that Loving Elvis series. It had 17 Ex-Girlfriends. Your brother was on it. Curry Grant was on it. And most of them did say that Elvis did the very first thing that he wanted to do was read the Bible. The first date was Bible all night long. No making out, just Bible.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's what I talk about in a lot of my videos. That Elvis was very spiritual. He was very much a searcher. He was very much grateful for his success, and he also was very confused in a sense. Why him?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the question that he asked a lot, but he asked it to God. And I mean, I remember one time he said that in front of me. And he said, "Why me, Lord?" I mean, the same song, "Why
Yeah.
me, Lord?" And I said, "Because you can handle it." And he just kind of looked at me real shocked and surprised, because I was like 18 years old when I said it. He just kind of went, "You're a little wise beyond your years, aren't you?" Well, look who I grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
So I turned it back on him. But yeah, I mean, I challenge everybody to put yourself in this man's shoes. I mean, from the time you're 18, 19 years old, the world is right there in the palm of your hand. Nobody says no to you. Nobody has ever reached that stardom that he reached, that level of stardom. I mean, nobody. Yeah, there's been a lot of great stars. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, there's a bunch of them, but nobody has reached that level. I mean, how would that affect you? How would you be?
Yeah. And I like you. I think
Yeah.
he did rather well.
I think he handled it very well.
Yeah, he did for the having that amount of power over people for decades, for a couple decades, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've seen him turn the hardest heart to just blubber just with a smile, man. Just, splash that Elvis smile on you, and all of a sudden there'd be, What gets me is ever since he's passed away, I hear some of these stars talking about meeting him and how, they present themselves as they were very cool around him. They were just like everybody else when they met him. They were shaking in their boots. I mean, because the biggest one, because I remember when he met the Beatles and he came back and he told my brothers and I about it. He said, "Yeah, I met the Beatles." He said, "I told them about you boys. You liked them." I said, "Wow, that's cool." And we said, "So what was it like?" He said, "Well, they came in and they all sat cross-legged in front of him and just stared at him." He said, "I sit there for a few minutes and said, 'Okay, boys, if you're not going to talk to me, I'm just going to pick up a book and go read it and go to bed.'" And they started finally talking to him. And so, but that's the way everybody was.
Hmm.
Everybody that met him, and I loved it. But it was, they were just like, all the fans that would be at the gate or something like that when they meet Elvis, these big stars reacted the same way. The Probably the worst one I heard was, and I wasn't there, but I heard Elton John. Talking about meeting Elvis, and Elton was, he was just this cool. No, he wasn't. He was just like Elvis finally had to say, "Somebody get this guy away from me," because
he was just like, yeah, just couldn't talk. And
yeah, then he kind of, how can you say this in today's world? He was acting very affectionate toward Elvis, and
okay.
no, that don't fly. No, I'm sorry. No, somebody get this guy away from me. And that was it. and it didn't
Yep.
go any further than that. But, I hear these people talk after his death, and it really just, yeah, that's not the way it really was. But you go right ahead, if that's your little fantasy, you go right ahead and live it. Uh, you know,
Yeah, I imagine it would have to be very difficult, for anybody because for anybody who liked Elvis. Now, people that didn't really care for Elvis, and there's people out there that didn't care for him. We know
yeah.
that. You know, bless their heart.
Well,
but
they,
but but the
there was
thing
a
is,
few,
you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be
there was a
overwhelmed.
few stars, I mean, but once they got to know him, because all they knew is it's just like he sit there and said the image is one thing and the man's another. What he
Hmm.
was talking, yeah, Elvis did have the image, but he had a human side too that not a lot of people saw. Those that were around him, like me, Rick, and David, and the family, Billy and Joe and all them, they knew the real man. They knew that they saw the image. We saw that, but we didn't really pay much attention to that because once we got it, this house right here behind me, once we got there, it was all Elvis, the man then. And I mean, that's what we grew up with. And like I've always said, we've discussed this. When people say, "Oh, you're this, and this," he said, "It's not important what I do. I'm just an entertainer. It's more important what my fans do." And that's the way he lived his life like that. He never forgot where he came from and who raised him, his mom and dad. I mean, a lot of people didn't know Vernon used to be a Sunday school teacher at church in Tupelo. So yeah, he was raised in the church, and that's where he got the bug of singing is in church.
A lot of clapping, a lot of singing, a lot of moving
Oh
around.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go to the black churches, which he would sneak out to down at Bill Street, and you see they're spirit filled all the time, man. I mean, the Holy Spirit moves in all of them. They don't stand there when they're singing; they're moving. That's where he got his moves and stuff from.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, this is the stuff that Elvis told me when I was growing up. I mean, that's this isn't just what I think. No, this is what he told me. So, and I'm happy to be able to share that with the fans. And give me a platform to share it with.
And you bet. I'm glad you're on here, and see, I know we had to take a couple weeks off because of Christmas and New Year's and all that stuff, but and everybody missed you. A lot of people, hey, when's Billy coming back? I'll be
I
back
missed
on.
him too. You
Yeah.
know, we're gonna work out a schedule or something. You and I'll talk about that. Now, I got to say one thing. I mean, since I've done your show, I've started doing a little bit of research on these shows, some of these shows,
Hmm.
YouTube, and I was surprised at how many channels I saw. And I got to say one thing. Now, some of these channels, I can tell you right now, if Elvis was alive, no, they wouldn't be going because I mean, one of them in particular was just spreading hate, and that's all they was talking about. I mean,
Hmm.
they did one segment. I mean, I don't watch this stuff because I mean, it's like people say, "Did you read this book or that book?" No, I don't. I don't read books. I mean, I was there. I don't have to. Nobody's going to tell me something about Elvis I don't already know. But this one channel just had to make it a point to go after the Stanleys, and I'm going, well, thank you for doing that. I mean, even though it wasn't a nice thing to do, I mean, but you know what? It's like Elvis once told me, he said, Billy, when they stop talking about you, that's when you worry. So
Oh yeah.
I'm glad they're talking about me. I mean, you spread all the hate you want. You know what? Do I hate that person for doing that? No. I'm like what Elvis taught me to be. Love everybody, even your enemies. Now that's hard to do, but
Hmm.
you get that inner strength in you and go, you know what? All they're doing is they're showing their jealousy. They wish they were me. They wish they could experience Elvis like I did. So I just go on and just, that's the way I look at it and move on.
Yeah, and and like I said, Elvis had his detractors too, and that's why he gave you that advice. I mean, you've just gotta move on. I've got my own detractors too. There's YouTube channels out there that are making tarot cards of me with a cowboy hat and claiming this and claiming that. Trying to get clout, trying to get subscribers. It's just how the world. I wish the world wasn't like that. You know, I'm,
Well, I mean, it has changed a lot. I mean, it's become popular to hate now. I mean, and it seems like they think the only way they can bring people to their channel is to go. I mean, they get a group of friends or people. They couldn't really call them friends, people that are on YouTube, and just like, oh yeah, go after this person, or go after that person, and that just fuel the hate that fuels it. Well, guess what? I mean, let me say, if Elvis was here, he would tell you to your face, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, most of these people don't. I mean, only ones that really knew the guy was the ones that were around him. You know, I mean, everything else is just pure speculation. And then, well, we're speaking of that. One thing I did, I had to make a note on this because I said, oh, this is one thing I want to talk about on Joe's show the next time I get with it. We talk everybody because I saw a lot of people answering the question, you know, well, who was the one that Elvis was talking about in my last conversation with him?
Hmm.
Okay, well, I didn't get to say who I thought it was, and
Shoot.
I'm gonna
So
announce.
I think it was it one. It was two people, right? You said it was
He
two
said
people
there
that I
was
loved,
two.
right?
Yeah, he said there was two. The first one, I think the number one would have to be Anne Margaret, and the reason I'm saying this, I mean, I met her, but I didn't know her.
Hmm.
And but that relationship went on from the time they did, which I think 64.
64, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
they went on up until Elvis's death. And the reason I say that, and I've been with him when he was with pretty much all the girlfriends. And but I was working for him and we were backstage and nobody announced that Anne Margaret was going to be there. But somebody knocked at the door and I just happened to be standing close to it and I open it and there's Anne Margaret. Now I'm 19 years old and there's Anne Margaret standing right in front of me. I'm
Yeah, yeah, beautiful, just beautiful. Probably better looking in person.
yeah, you know, just good Lord. And so I opened the door and I just kind of stepped sideways and I said, Elvis. And I just pointed. Everybody in that room shut up. I mean, you could feel that whatever they had between them when their eyes met, it was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I was just going, oh my God. And she came in and I walked her up to Elvis and Elvis introduced me. He said, this is Billy. She said, oh, I remember you telling me about him. I kind of looked at him, you know, like you mentioned me to Ann, you know, and you know, after they said a few other words, the way they was looking at each other, I just said, okay, it's time for me to leave. I just kind of backed out, and but that there was something about them too. I mean, everybody that was with Elvis, I mean, even the guys that worked for him, even say that that was a special. It was very, very special, whatever it was. Now, I've heard a lot of rumors and stuff like this. The only thing I can say is when it was announced in the LA newspaper when they were doing the movie that there was more than just a she was more than just a co-star. That put Elvis in a very awkward position because somebody was living back at Graceland at the time.
Yep.
And that didn't sit too well. I'm gonna tell you. In fact, I think it's kind of funny. You'll see pictures of her where she dyed her hair the same color as Ann.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Which
But
way? Hey, which is
Philip,
understandable.
close but no
Yeah,
cigar. Okay,
yeah.
close but no cigar. But I mean, and here I'm not going. I made this promise to you when we first started doing this, or before we did. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm stating facts of what I saw. Okay, and but there was something there. The other one, there was a girl in high school. He had a picture taken with her at Maywood. And I'm trying to remember her name.
Dixie Locke was somebody he dated
Yeah,
very
yeah,
early. Dixie
yeah,
Locke,
yeah.
but it wasn't a very. You know, I first off, I mean, I don't want to disparage it because they did have some. They had enough of a relationship that Elvis rushed back, and she wrote love letters to Elvis. You know, I mean, I think you can agree that Elvis was in love with.
His mom really liked Dixie
Hmm.
a lot. So,
Yeah.
and you know, I mean, she was pretty much the controlling factor up until she passed away in the family. You know, because whatever Mama said, you know, is probably pretty much what happened. So, um, you know, from what I hear from what Elvis told me, she was a special lady. You know, I wish I could have met her. I'd love to met her before because she's just sounded like I don't know if we talked about this, but Elvis and Lamar had a game of tag on motorcycles and they wrecked. Well, Gladys saw it and she come out there and she picked up a Harley Davidson and threw it. I mean,
Oh,
that's yeah,
oh,
she was like Superwoman, man. She threw that Harley away from Elvis. You know, nothing was going to hurt her little boy. I mean, and the reason people, well, why were they so close? Because Elvis lived. And the same thing, we see, most people don't understand is Rick and David would always tell you, Billy, you're the closest to mom. I was because there was two children, two boys born before me, but they were stillborn.
hmm.
So I was the first one to live. Now, a lot of people don't know that my mom was pregnant with Vernon's child in 1961.
Yeah, I've never heard that. No, yeah.
Yeah, she was. And she had a miscarriage though. And Elvis was so excited about this. I mean, you think, God, it was almost like Lisa Marie being born. I mean, he was so excited. You know, he was, oh, we're going to fix up a nursery and blah, 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 and all that. But uh, mom, again, had a miscarriage. So, but yeah, this was in 1961.
Now, we everybody's always heard, I've always read that Elvis wasn't happy that Vernon was dating somebody so close to Gladys's passing, and I'm sure that's probably fairly accurate. I think he was probably upset and hurt about it. I mean, in the beginning, but obviously, meeting you three boys, and having some time and seeing that his dad was happy probably changed things for him. Some time passed of Gladys passing.
Yeah.
He wouldn't want his father to be alone, but I'm sure it probably did hurt a little bit right away.
Well, here again, I mean, me, Rick, and David, we were too young. You know, like I said.
Yeah.
Now, what I do know is he may have had some feelings toward his father, but not toward my mom because he never showed any disrespect or anything like that to my mom whatsoever. Um, people, well, Elvis had to move. No, that garage apartment that was built back there was for us, to stay. And,
It's because he kept y'all out. He kept y'all out at the carnival grounds and all
yeah,
night long
well,
at the
going
theater.
to the fairgrounds and the
Yeah,
movies and the roller skating rink and everything like that. And I mean, whenever he was home, and then Graceland back then it was a lot different back in the 60s, but especially the early 60s, because pretty much a lot of people from the gates would just come up to the house and party when Elvis was home.
hmm.
It didn't get tighter until a little bit late, I guess, when Priscilla's moved in. That's when a lot of people stopped bringing a lot of people up to the house and everything.
That would make sense. Now, here's the other thing too. To continue on that, I continually, even in this Loving Elvis documentary, I think Priscilla said it a few times that she moved into Graceland when she was 16. But all the records I've ever seen is it was 1963. Elvis was recording Fun in Acapulco when she came over and lived with your mom and you and Vernon for a little bit. I know, lived there for a little bit. But she came over 2 months before her 18th birthday. So I
Right.
mean, to the best of your memory, was it 1963 as
Yeah. I
well?
mean, we were there almost 3 years before she got there.
Okay, then it'd be 63. That's correct. So I don't understand why every doc, and I know why they're doing it. It's what you talked about, the negative, the controversial. They're trying to drag
That,
Elvis's name to the
that's what
mud.
sells newspapers and magazines is that
Yeah,
stuff right there. I mean, and then it's the same thing with YouTube channels.
yeah.
They put these sensational titles on there and it's like, it's clickbait. That's all it is, just to get people to tune in. But she stayed there maybe a day,
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So
maybe.
she
I
was
mean,
there for one day out of the two, but Elvis wasn't even around yet. He was still recording Fun in Acapulco when they
yeah.
got there. So
Mhm.
I guess that's just important, and just the fact that you're a
Well,
material
they
witness to
had to
the.
make it look good, okay?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
So okay, Elvis is in LA. Well, she's going to be here. Well, I mean, I remember that's when first met uh, her dad. I can't remember, Bo Yu.
Yeah.
I met him, and he seemed like a very nice gentleman. I mean, I only saw him, just that one time, and then later on in life, once they got married, then uh, yeah, I saw a lot more of him.
And you were only 10 or 11 years old in 63, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, that's when we was living on. It was that Elvis had actually bought. It was on the corner of Acacia and Hermitage. But down the street a little ways is where uh, Elvis bought the first, that house there, and it was supposed to be it was a wedding gift for my mom and Vernon. But Vernon liked the house that was on the corner of Hermitage and Acacia. For some reason, he said he liked corner lots because he said you get more land. So
Oh, that's funny. That
yeah,
just that sounds like something that was was scared in the sense that he would have less because of how he was raised in his whole adult life before Elvis. He didn't have enough of anything. So, I
no,
mean,
they were.
that
I
was
mean,
important. Yeah.
because a lot of people they love to bring up this stuff that well, they try to say Elvis was racist and stuff like that. No, Elvis was just like the poor black families living in Mississippi at the time. That's why he never saw that. He said when I was growing up, I was just like them. I mean, there was no difference except
Hmm.
skin color, and we didn't look at skin color back then, especially down in Mississippi.
And it's because the media is perpetrated. Now, yeah, there was racism in the 50s, 40s,
Sure
60s,
there
70s.
was. I
Sure,
mean,
especially
yeah,
in the deep South. But the
yeah,
thing is, when people try to identify Elvis in his childhood, like I grew up poor, but I grew up poor in a generation where, I mean, the media tries to pit black versus white, Chinese versus white, Korean, all this other stuff, Russians bad, and the media has always perpetrated that. Back then, they were so poor they didn't have it. There was a newspaper that maybe the whole like maybe four families would share,
all
for
right. All these pictures, these people say, Here's a picture of Elvis when he was this, that." No, that's not Elvis. They didn't know anybody that had a camera back then. Are you
uh,
kidding me? No, I mean, only rich people had a camera back then. I mean, not down in Mississippi, I mean, so, the only pictures you see is like when he went to the fair or something like that and he had his Western outfit or something. Yeah, that's because you paid to get a picture taken, but nobody that back then had cameras or cell phones like they do today. Uh,
yeah.
uh, you know.
So let's talk about Elvis Week.
Well,
Before we
no,
go.
no, let's here's what we do. Let's take care of the elephant in the room right now.
Okay.
Everybody talks about Elvis's birthday. How come no family member was there? I'll tell you why, because they don't invite us.
Hmm.
That's EPE that does not invite us. Another thing, okay, I'll be 72 this Sunday is my birthday. I've been on blood thinners since 2018. I can't stand out in that freezing cold weather like that. But I'm Elvis's brother, and he wouldn't expect me to be standing outside when they've got all this other space across the street where they could be having all that done inside for these people instead of freezing the fans' hinds
Hmm.
off standing outside. Why? They're not thinking,
They're not. No.
you know. I mean, no family member, because I get, people sending me this stuff on Facebook. There was no family. Yeah, well, that's real sad, because trust me, if they would have asked me, I'd have been there and been proud to stand up and say a few words, on Elvis's behalf. Billy Smith would too, Joe Smith. I mean, people need to get their minds right is they don't ask us to do stuff like this. If they
Hmm.
did, we'd all say yes in a heartbeat. They don't even ask Donna, or anybody in the family, you know. So
And it's fine. I mean, the majority of people I see that talk about it don't put the blame on you or Billy or Don or anybody else. They do put the blame on Elvis Presley Enterprises. Now, just taking a look at the lineup for his 90th birthday. Yeah, I mean, Estelle Brown was there. That's wonderful. Estelle was beloved by Elvis,
yeah,
but no family, no family. You got Wink Martindale. I mean, sure, he goes back to 54, 55. As a friend, but no family. Riley and Harper and Finley, none of them showed up. And of course, people say it's the wildfires. No, it's not the wildfires because it's scheduled beforehand. They were never scheduled to appear. So I don't know what's going on with Elvis Presley Enterprises, but
I don't
I'm
claim to know it.
wondering.
I have the only thing I know about EPE is I worked for it before it turned over where it's at right now. When Elvis was alive, that's the only time I knew anything about EPE. After that,
Yeah.
you it's changed hands a few times, and it's you know. And another thing, I'm glad we gone here. because a friend of mine at work said the other day, he said, "Have you seen that new moonshine?" I said, "What are you talking about, moonshine?" He said, "It's peanut butter and banana, and it's got Elvis's name on it." I said, "What?" I just said, "Have they?" I said, "I know they paid money to do that." I said, "But to do something like this, I mean, something that Elvis was not, that he didn't care if somebody did, but you didn't do it to excess around him drink.
Hmm.
No,
No, no, no. Yeah.
fine. Are you kidding me?" I'm going, "You got to be kidding me." I mean, the thoughts that was going through my mind, I had to say, "God, please forgive me," because I was, God, I cannot believe they they'll put his name on anything and nobody thinks anything about it except for the family that gets sit here and go, "You got to be kidding me. Peanut butter and banana moonshine."
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, between 56 and 58, Elvis Presley merchandise made $250 million. Now,
Yeah.
the lipstick, all that other stuff. And Authentic Brands Group is the ones that are the major owners of Elvis Presley Enterprises. And it's sad because I was telling somebody this the other day, that the brand of Elvis is losing its soul. It's selling out because it's the money, and they're forgetting. They're trying to sell into bring 18 to 20 to 25, fans in, but they're bringing them in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like that cartoon series that somebody was part of, and
Uh,
then they sit there and try to say, "Well, I didn't know it was like that." How could you not? You're a creator on that thing, and you're also an executive producer on it, and you're going to sit there and try to say you didn't know what they were going to do? Come on,
yeah.
man. That dog
No.
don't hunt right there. I want to tell you right now.
Yeah, that ticked me off. Made Elvis look like an idiot, and made Scatter, who already was a a skirt chasing chimp, made him look even worse.
Scatter, I'm sure, rolled over in his grave when he saw
Bro, that's how
that.
bad it was. Scatter was rolling over.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
sure he got embarrassed. But I mean, it's just like the thing about Elvis was, see, Elvis stayed true to himself and to his fans all those years. He never wavered. But now that it's okay for those that are in charge of the name and likeness to do what they want to. No, you got to stay true to what Elvis was true to. But they don't do that. I mean, it's just like somebody. I saw some people get in a big discussion about Elvis's Bible going up for sale. Why are you? I mean, I went last time I went through there. I didn't even see a Bible anywhere, and I'm going, the most important book in his life, and you don't have a copy of it sitting
right.
someplace around here. There's something wrong with this picture here. I mean,
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I made some videos maybe a year and a half ago. It was called Selling Elvis. And it centered around stuff like that. That I think that Graceland, they should own every bit of piece, the bedroom furniture of Elvis, everything. But I get that Elvis did give things away,
yeah,
but Elvis Presley Enterprises has enough money that they should buy it no matter the cost.
yeah,
But then again, then that brings up the point. What if somebody loves Elvis and would love to read the same Bible Elvis read, and they would take great care of it and talk to their kids and their grandkids about this Bible? It's a smaller impact, but sometimes that small impact can branch out versus it's sitting in Graceland,
yeah.
behind a glass case.
Well, he had more than one Bible. I can understand that, but I mean, that would be something. Because I don't know if they've still got the one that's up in his bedroom that was next to his bed. But there used to be a big family, a big white, when you first walk into Graceland and you go to the right where that formal living room is right there where the long couch is. There was a
Hmm.
big white one sitting on that table right there. I didn't see it when I was there.
Well,
Now
they
I
probably
got to
would
say
keep.
this, next time you come to Memphis, me and you're going to go through Graceland together. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give you a tour.
And then we both needed to take a nap and then go next door and go look at everything over there and see if it's there. Because I
Yeah.
tell you what, it's a long day. It's really a long day once you try to get through everything.
Well, the
Uh,
best way to do it too. I mean, and a friend of mine took me on this a year ago. With it, not the ultimate VIP, but the VIP tour where, you know, they don't shuffle you through like cattle on this. It's the next one up above just the regular tour, and that's all it is. And then the thing I loved about it was I'd never taken that tour before, but the friend of mine that came in town said, "Oh, well, this is what we're going to do," and he said, So we get we get on the bus, the shuttle bus, and we go up, and it takes you to the back parking lot. And you get out, and then you go into what used to be the bedroom that Elvis had, the garage apartment. Elvis had converted over for me, Rick, and David, and that's
Okay.
where you watch the movie. They talk about Elvis like that you see across the street, and then with this you get that placard, and you can walk. I mean, we went probably around 12 o'clock because it takes about 3 hours for me to go through it when I don't have to worry about talking too loud because I don't want to interfere with the fans. They got their headsets on and stuff like that. So we can move at our own pace. And I loved it, and it happens every time I do it. People will hear what I'm saying anyway, and can we follow you? Yeah,
Yeah.
come on. So and it happens every time I go through there. But and I try to be respectful, and I don't want to talk too loud because I know they're listening to it and stuff like that. But and I don't walk in there. This is who I am. No, I don't do that. I try to keep it very low key and just the people that are with me. I try to give them an experience that they'll never forget. And everybody that's gone through with me, they all say the same thing. Billy, this place has a whole new meaning now that I've gone through here with you. You showed me stuff, and because they what's behind this door right here? I tell them, I mean, so, and that's why I do it is because I want people to see it the way I did, as a home.
Right. And it's a shame. And I'm wondering here, I like to give people and the benefit of the doubt. I'm wondering, as far away as Joe Weinshanker and Elvis Presley Enterprises is from the man of Elvis, if
Yeah.
they just don't realize that you would be of value to them, to the fans, really to the fans, to be able to once a month have a special tour that you go around and talk or whatever.
I
Because I
would
know
love to
you
do that. I
yeah, I
mean,
know you would.
that would be an honor for me to be able to do something like that. I mean, when people ask me to do it, I feel honored that they even ask me to say, "Would you take me through Grace?" Well, yeah, I mean, if I'm not working, which I'm doing part-time now, but if I'm not, and it's the weather's warmer. I mean,
Right,
not
yeah.
here in August now. No, that's too hot for me. But in the springtime or fall, yeah, I love it. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you live there. You
yeah.
lived there,
I mean,
you
this is
know?
home right here. I can take, I mean, like one example, there's two examples I've got right here where Graceland, the people that run it don't know what they got. Like I don't know, how many times have you been through Graceland?
Just a couple of times the last couple of years, and then a long time ago when I moved 1997 and then 2022, 2023, or
Okay.
2024.
In 1997, I think it was still there. When you first walked in, there's you see the fireplace, where the big long couch is right there, and there was they got that smoked glass that outlined the fireplace right there.
Hmm.
There was a broke piece of paint, glass pane right there. They replaced it. They didn't know why it was broke. It was broke because it was raining one day and Elvis still wanted to play football. So we pushed everything aside and we played football right there.
Well,
Somebody got tackled and hit it with their shoulder and it broke it.
uh,
And they don't know. I went, oh, you got to be kidding me. You took that away. I mean, and there used to be, it may have been there when you did. Did you ever remember seeing all the gold records? And there was one that had a broke piece of glass up covering it, the
I
record.
do. I do.
How that
It
got
was it
broke?
was it was in the racquetball court. All the records were
Yeah.
there.
You know
Yeah.
how it got broke? I
Well,
was sitting
you.
there one day and I was sitting there one day and Vernon comes walking in from the office. Look at this, Sonny. That's what he called him. He said, look at this, Sonny. You got another one. So we're sitting there and we're looking at it. And all of a sudden I go, is that really your record on there? Or he, he said, I never thought of that. So he sits down and he's picks up this real big, thick glass, green glass ashtray. And he's about, whoa, whoa. I said, I was just, you don't have to find out. I was just wondering if it was. He said, not Billy, that's a great question. I don't know. So he breaks the glass and we go downstairs to the basement. He drops the needle down and all of a sudden we're hearing Slim Whitman.
Oh man, are you kidding me? That's funny. But Colonel Parker didn't want to waste any Elvis record at all that he could make money on, so he put some Slim.
You
But
should have seen the look on Elvis's face. He turned as red as that red box behind you right there. He turned so red. He just, I can't believe this. But Slim Whitman, holy, whatever. I just screamed. And I said, I wonder if the rest of them are like that. And Elvis said, no, we're not going to find out. I said,
Right,
okay.
we're not gonna exactly.
But I guess you're right. Colonel's so tight with the money and everything. No, find anybody else's and put the gold on there. And that's
Or maybe since he was such a carny, pulling a what do they call it? Pulling a wool over somebody like carnies do,
yeah.
And I wonder if
But
Elvis brought. I'm sure Elvis had to bring it up to him. Hey,
see, they didn't know what they had, and they replaced it. And I went, you I mean, I could tell you so much about. I mean, I could teach them all so much about that place. I mean, I know every nook and cranny in there, and I love it when I hear this clickbait or see it on you. Secret room in Graceland. There is no secret room. Not to me, there's not, because I played hide and seek in every one of those rooms up there. Are you kidding me? You know, Elvis taught me how to slide down the banister on that banister right there at the front when you first walk in.
Hmm.
Imagine him teaching you how to slide down a banister.
That's why D said it's time to move, boys, before you break your neck.
That and when we started racing go-karts, I mean, I'm only, 8 years old, 9 years old, and I'm in a go-kart that goes very, very fast, and whoa, well, wait a minute. But Elvis saw that, him and I both had that need for speed. And I mean, that was the trait that he saw in me, that was our bond. And with Rick, it was with books, you know, and with David, it was just, the big guy, tough guy.
Mhm.
And that was the three things that Elvis is, saw in each of us that were different, that made us each different from each other. And he played on those three aspects right there in our life growing up. He was the one that
And
encouraged me. Somebody said, "How did you get involved in race?" Elvis got me involved. I mean, he had me driving that go-kart when I was just a kid.
yeah, you shared a story the last time or the time before about
Yeah,
breaking his little record going around there, and he was
yeah,
so proud of you.
yeah.
So hey, that
Well,
brings up a
there was another time I did that too, and this is when uh, I got my driver's license, and then I would help him take Elvis to the airport, and this was when he was still flying commercial, and that I think they were going to go finish up a movie or something like that. So uh, Charlie was late for some reason, and so Vernon had Elvis and Red and Sonny and a couple of others in his car, and I was sitting in the limo waiting. Okay, here we go. And then finally Charlie comes running out, and he just said, "Okay, we ain't got time." So I took off. I had that limo almost on two wheels when we turned over onto Winchester, trying to catch Elvis and them. And I'll never forget, we finally get to them just as they're pulling up on the tarmac, that's when they'd let us pull up behind the plane, and they'd lower the gateway in the back of the plane and let Elvis and everybody board the plane. So he gets out of the car and he's got that big grin, and he walks over to me, gives me a hug, and he said, "I told everybody in that car you was going to make it." I said, "Oh, you know I am." I
yeah.
said, "There's no way I'm going to let you guys outrun me." So, but I mean, that smile was just, and then he'd give you that wink too, just that right there, just,
Well,
but
and it's funny because family, but you grew up meeting him like a comic book hero, sweeping you guys off your feet. Wonderful Christmas, big brother that you never had.
yeah.
So I mean, he could probably affect all three of you very much that way because he changed your lives. He,
Yeah.
like literally did.
Well, he raised us. I mean, he
Yes.
said it quite often. These are my boys. So, and that's, and I carry that with honor, and I'm sure a lot of people sit there, well, but there's a few things you did. Well, there's a lot of things I've done in my life that I wish I hadn't done, but, but I ask for forgiveness that I've done, that I've done it and stuff. And, if I've ever said anything that upset any of the fans or anything like that, I hope they take my apology and say, "I'm sorry if I ever did say anything to offend you," because that was not my intention. I would never do that, because Elvis taught me at an early age, if these people love me, then what should you do? Love them back. You got it,
Mhm.
Billy. And that's what I do. I love the fans.
Well, and that's why I'm glad you're here because once again we haven't really talked much about Ricky or David, and I was when you're sharing those stories, it made me kind of wonder. Once Elvis passed, I know Ricky he got clean pretty quickly, right? If
Yeah,
I remember right.
he immediately turned to the Lord and he became a preacher. He worked his way through seminary college and then became, a preacher. And then David became an evangelist. Where it took me 10 years to finally, I had a nightmare one night, and I call it a nightmare, but it helped me. I was sitting there and I was just talking to Elvis. We were sitting in the den, and we weren't really talking about anything. And all of a sudden, I just stopped and I said, "What does it feel like being dead?" And he looked at me just real cold and said, "Don't you know?" And I woke up from that dream and I put myself in a treatment center the next
Oh,
day. Oh man, I just, whoo. I mean, and he comes and visits me every now and then, you know, and he's
yeah.
not too far from me at any time, any given day. I mean, because like I said, since he's gone, I'll see stuff and I go, man, do you see that, Elvis? Can you believe what's going on right here? If I see something remarkable and stuff like, I know he's just looking down, going, yeah, Billy, that's cool. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
Rick and David cleaned up a lot quicker than I did. Yeah.
and that brings another kind of question up. So you guys kind of went your separate ways, but
Let
right? I
me
mean,
just
you
say,
guys
I
went
know
your separate ways.
everybody in that whole inner circle did
Hmm.
because Elvis was the hub that held it all together. When he died, everybody went their own different direction. And I mean, I didn't see it or read it, but people were telling me, can you believe so and so said this about you and they and then I went, whoa, what? What do you mean? Because I grew up loving these people like my brother, and I've never really said anything bad about any of them until I started seeing, whoa, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything, I mean, accuse Rick of killing Elvis? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. I mean, Rick carried that with him. And I asked him once, I said, why, Rick? I said, you had nothing to do with it. He said, but Billy, it was on my watch. Oh, God. Rick. It was
So
Aunt Delta that took the last uh, a pack of pills to him. And where did it come from? It came from a nurse's trailer.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
The back.
let's clear this whole thing up here because, acting like, no, Rick didn't have the pills with him. All the pills were with the nurse. They were the ones that said, yeah, here you go. Now, if there was something wrong, shouldn't the nurse have said, no, I think that's enough? Or maybe they were afraid to say maybe that's enough because they might
Well,
get fired or, there's a whole lot. Everybody speculated on this thing and love to put the blame on Rick, I mean, which Rick is completely innocent of the whole thing. And I'll get sick and tired of hearing it. These people, they run their mouths because they don't know what they're talking about. But everybody,
because and to your point there, the 15th, the 14th, the 13th, the 12th of August, it was the same. It was almost the
yeah,
same, different amounts of packets that Elvis took to get
every
sleep to
night.
wake up. You
Yeah.
know, and I always wondered. He played racquetball with Billy and Joe, and he hit his shin really super hard.
Yeah.
You know, and he had to stop playing because he hit his shin. Swinging as hard as he could. And so
Yeah.
maybe it was hurting him more, and he felt like he needed some more pain medication to take care of that. I mean, that's where I always went with the story that's
It
where the
was no
extra
different. It was
medication
no
came from.
different that night than it was every other night before. It was the same thing. And I mean, I will go to my grave with this one thought that the same thing happened to Elvis happened to me. I mean, I had a heart attack, stroke, and seizure right there. I mean, and I was taking a nap. If somebody hadn't been there, I would have died right there, and nobody would have known what happened. But see, I mean,
But yeah, and there
and
was there was nobody there.
we're not going to get into this whole, well, if so and so would have been
Yeah,
there. I think Linda watched Elvis like a hawk, just like
yeah.
his mom. I mean, but I'm sure,
Until it was too
I'm
much for
sure if you
her.
was in the bathroom more than 10 minutes, your wife would be
Oh
knocking.
yeah,
You all right?
yeah. Oh yeah. She all the time. She's like, "What are you doing in there?"
Yeah.
It's my office, baby. You
Yeah.
know.
But see, that's a normal relationship right there. That's what, which should have happened, like, okay, he hasn't come back. I mean,
Well,
I wouldn't.
here's where I look at it here. I mean, we know Linda. She finally had to leave. She finally left. It was too much for her. She
Yeah.
just, and then in steps another girl that's not keeping the schedule every single day with Elvis for months at a time. She'd go home. She'd have her normal schedule. Elvis would go on the road. Sometimes she'd go out there for a little bit, go home, have her normal schedule. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever blame Ginger, and I know you don't either, and I know you don't either. But at the
No.
same time, I think that it was communicated to her, hey, if don't let him go to the bathroom alone, and watch him.
Or
And
for
she
any
just,
length of time. I mean, see, to me, then we get into a thing of caring.
yeah,
Now, and I don't want to. I don't want to get to speculating on that. And I'm not going to. I just know the same thing. If Liz is in the bathroom, whoa, okay, you okay in there? I do
yeah.
it all the time.
Well, you would hear of somebody falling down, and unfortunately, she fell back asleep. That's just how that's what happened. And I don't know, Grayson more than me. I mean, the bed's there, and then you've got the bathroom over here, right at the foot of the bed, and kind of that way, about five,
Yeah,
ten
you go
feet,
to
or
the
is it?
foot of the bed. I mean, it's just a few steps, and then you're right.
Yeah,
There's the bathroom door right there, and then the commode is right as soon as you open the door, right there on the left. So,
yeah, yeah. So the thing is, once again, you said only God and Elvis knows exactly what happened when it happened.
amen.
And it's but I think every Elvis fan, every day they think about Elvis, they think about his life, his career, and they also think about his death. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's very prevalent in every person that has an emotional connection, and I'm sure it's the same for you. You have a look of sadness very often when you're talking about Elvis, happiness and sadness, like back and forth in every 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds. I can see it on your face because
Well,
you're reliving it all.
yeah, it's well, you just said it. I mean, it's like when I'm talking about him, it's like a whole movie going off in my brain, and I can see all this stuff. And I mean, when I talk about this part of it, that's the sad part, is losing him at such an early age, just like with Lisa. Yeah, I mean, and I've said this before. I could never put those two words together, death, Elvis and death. I never thought of that. I mean, I remember one time we were sitting there watching TV, and Daddy Vernon was walking by, and we saw him walking. And Elvis was just started smiling and said, "The silver fox." That was one of the things he called his daddy every now and then because he had gray hair. He grayed early, and Elvis was graying early too. So he said he's going to outlive us all, and that's what Elvis really thought. I mean, for some reason, Elvis he really didn't think he was going to be around long. That's why he burned the candle at both ends.
Hmm.
And I mean, he often told me, he said, "Billy, you got to live like there is no tomorrow." And so, and that's what he did.
Well, I always thought I was going to die at 21, like James Dean or 21, and racing cars. Because I mean, every day when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I would do 120, 155, 165 Dodge Chargers, Plymouth Belvederes, 440 police intercept. I drove from Memphis to Nashville on my 21st birthday, and I got there in an hour and 40 minutes from Memphis to Nashville. 130, 140 on the CB, like an idiot, like a young idiot. And so
Burt Reynolds, huh?
yeah, I mean, I'm just really lucky. I mean, God really took care of me because I'm not kidding. I mean, every day from the time I was 18 to 21, every day was 120 plus every day.
Yeah.
I had a blowout at 105 on my front tire on a 2-lane road in the middle of the desert. I was going so fast in my Plymouth Belvedere that the telephone poles were fence posts, 165 floating between the 2 lanes, and then on the way back, the rear wheel bearing started on fire. So, anyways, thank God and thank you, Lord. But I'm 49. But Elvis, he seemed to know he was going to pass away young, and we all have some sort of clairvoyance. And I know he didn't do it on purpose. I know he didn't live hard to die young. I don't think
Oh,
he
no,
did.
no.
But Kathy Westmoreland talked about his last year of his life. He said, "Kathy, I'm gonna die soon, or I'm dying." She's in her book. She talks about it all the time, and she was on the road with Elvis a lot. And I know they had a relationship for a while, and then they had a friendship towards the end. But you say the same thing. He felt like he was gonna not be here long.
Yeah, well, he said, pretty much from the moment I met him, I mean, he didn't start on that right away, but I mean, it was, it started early with him telling, I'm not going to be here long, so I'm going to, that's why he said it in a way to encourage me or anybody that would listen is make the most of every day because there is no promise of tomorrow, so that's the way he lived. And then people go, wow. they look at his life and see how he lived. There wasn't, people like, just for example, the TCB with the lightning bolt. It means taking care of business that fast. There
Mhm.
was no,
In a flash, yeah.
yeah, get it done now. There is no, when are you going to get it done? No, I'm done, boss. Here you go. No, he didn't like that. When he asked me to do something, I did it right then and there. I remember one time he did a thing. He'd like to test you every now and then. And so I just started working for him. We was in LA. And speaking of LA, real quick, my thoughts and prayers go out to the people, all the people of Los Angeles, during this, tragic time. You
Mhm.
know, we all need to say a little extra prayer for them tonight. But we was in LA, and Elvis knew I was scared. The Manson family and all that stuff. Just and he woke me up at 3 a.m. and said, "I need you to go get my humidifier." I said, "Okay." So I get up, get dressed. He said, "You got a gun?" I said, "No." He said, "Here you go, take this one." Take a gun and I drive over to the house, and it was the one where Danny Thomas had his house built at the end of the street. It was up in the up in the hills someplace. You could see the ocean from it.
Bel Air, maybe?
Yeah, it was Bel Air.
Yeah.
So I go in the house, I got the key, and I was like Barney Fife.
Oh.
Anything that moved, I was jumping around with
Oh man.
And so I was scared to death. I was 19 years old, and I just said, I can't just stand here and do this. So I tucked the gun away. I ran in there where his bedroom was, grabbed a humidifier, wrapped a cord around it, ran back out, locked the door, and jumped in the car. And okay. So I get back to the house. I knock on the door. "Who is it?" I said, "It's me, boss. I got your humidifier." He comes to the door. He said, "Just set it down. I don't need it." I said, "I'm sleeping now." And he gives me that sheepish grin, and I just went, "Okay."
Yeah. Well, he probably wanted it at the time, and then it took you so long because you're going around every corner like Barney Fife,
Pointed at anything that moved. Every sound.
3 hours later, Billy makes it back. But he said that had to be 69, 1970, something like that, because I think Sharon Tate and Charles
72.
Manson.
Yeah, it was
72.
1972. Well, what happened was in 1969, when that actually happened, we were in Hawaii and we were coming back uh, because Elvis was opening there
Mm-hmm.
in Vegas. And when we were supposed to stay at Elvis's house, but he didn't have a stay there. He had to stay in a hotel and had two uh, police sergeants spend the night right in front of that door in our hotel room. And the next morning we was on a Frank Sinatra's private Learjet flying to Vegas. And then that's when we saw Elvis. But that's how all that played out, in
Yeah,
the
because I don't think that they caught the Manson gang right away. I don't think they.
No, it was about
So,
a year, almost a year later or something, I thought. But yeah, that whole thing was just spooky, man, just
and
you know,
I feel like Elvis was on his hit list. I think that I read somewhere, and I don't know whether or not
let
I'm
me just say
speaking.
this. Did you ever see the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I've seen parts of
Tarantino.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let me just say this. If they would have tried to do that at Elvis's house in LA, none of them would have come
Oh
out.
no, yeah, they would have
No,
walked
they would
off
have been all
intact.
dead. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah,
Oh, now you're messing with the wrong person here because everybody that worked for him had a gun. I mean,
yeah.
I remember when he'd send me to go pick up Lisa or something. He said, you got a gun? I said, yeah. He said, what do you do? I said, shoot first and ask questions later. He said, all right.
Yep.
He knew I
Yep.
would. I mean, 'cause that's his little girl right there. Nobody's going to touch that little girl while I'm around.
And people forget that you guys were on high alert all day
Every city
because
we went to.
every city.
Yeah. Because I couldn't believe Rick and David told me about it when I first started. Said, you're going to hear about these death threats. I said, what? Who wants to hurt Elvis? Why? You know, but Elvis once said a long time ago, I remember shortly after the Kennedy assassination, he said that was one of his biggest fears was some guy sitting in a jail cell smirking and saying, I'm the one that got Elvis. Well, there was an unwritten code for all the guys that worked for Elvis. If anything was to ever happen, that person would have never got to court. I can promise you that right now. He would have looked like a piece of Swiss cheese because all guns would have been out and blazing. I mean, no, we took that very seriously. I mean, when we when we was it was a relaxed atmosphere. What people saw when we was in a crowd, but I mean, everybody in that was around us had a job to do, and they knew what it was, is to keep anybody. And it all happened innocently back in the 50s when he said a fan just was reaching for him and put three scrapes down his cheek with her fingernails.
Mhm.
And he knew right then and there, he said, "Oh, I'm very vulnerable here." So that's when he started doing security. But then after what happened to Kennedy, he just said that was his biggest fear. And I remember he was talking about it once. And everybody that was sitting around there that day, that night, just said, "Don't worry, boss. They'll never get to court. We'll make sure of that." And
Yeah, which provided, some what do they call it? I mean, Elvis was like, yeah, but I'm still gonna die if you then I'll still be dead, but at least you'll get the sucker. But I'm sure
they
that's
won't be
fair
around to
because
brag. They won't. Well, look at like that idiot that got John Lennon.
oh god, yeah,
Because all he did was sit there. I'm the one that got Lennon. And see, that was Elvis's biggest fear, and that would have never happened. John Lennon should have believed what these people were telling you.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that love you, but there's a lot of people that want to they can't make a name any other way except for saying I'm the one that killed you.
Or
I mean,
or like John Lennon's killer supposedly was a huge John Lennon fan, and then he got deranged because Lennon didn't give an autograph or something like that. So Elvis had Kennedy, 63. Then he had Martin Luther King,
Luther King,
60,
and then
68. Then you got John Lennon, and you got Robert Kennedy.
yeah,
So Elvis was as famous as every one of those, or more famous. So people go, he was paranoid. No, he wasn't paranoid. There was somebody that wanted to kill him in every city, probably.
exactly. Well, I mean, we got death threats pretty much every city we ever went to. And I couldn't put that together. Going, why would anybody want the most peaceful man you'd ever want to meet in your whole life, and somebody wants to do him harm, and all he's trying to do is just entertain you? That's all he wants to do. I couldn't understand that. And I still
You
can't.
you'd forgotten all the women that left their husbands and boyfriends because of Elvis. That's why. They that it's my father was a very. It's funny, like when I growing up, you'd never have figured I'd be such a huge Elvis fan. My mom loved Elvis, and she died when I was 6. But my father, he used to say Elvis is the devil. Like literally, he would say that to me. He was Catholic. We go to church every morning, 5 days a week. We go to church on Sunday as well. He'd sing all big, and he had a great voice. My dad did. But for the first 10, 12, 13, 14 years of my life, that's what I heard from my dad. And then finally, my dad just gave it up. Obviously,
Yeah,
but that's how he felt, and he felt that way in the 50s. Because Elvis Presley brought a sexual revolution on that changed the world, and all the women were unhinged towards it. And I say unhinged in a good way. There's unhinged crazy, like some of those YouTubers out there, but they were just beside themselves. They couldn't figure out why their body was reacting and their hearts were
yeah,
reacting, and the guys didn't know what to do with it. They're like, "Oh my God, I've just lost my girlfriend and wife to this guy."
yeah. And all he's doing is singing.
All he's doing is singing, right? Yeah. Well, he was doing a little bit more in the early days, but
Yeah,
later on, all he was doing was singing, and he was singing gospel, but it
yeah,
still didn't matter.
yeah,
There's so back to Ricky and David. So I know Ricky's passed away, and David's still I've seen some stuff on him. How
yeah.
often did you guys talk about Elvis? Was it a sore subject that you guys wouldn't talk about much for the first 10 years? Did you talk about it too much? Like what was it like for you guys as
Every
brothers?
time, every time, and I said I mentioned this to Sam Thompson the last time I saw him because he was here during Elvis week last year, and I saw him, and we sit down and we was talking, and Charles Stone was there. I said, "Do you know what it's like every time you get anybody that was ever around Elvis together?" And they kind of looked at me, "Well, yeah, we know." I said, "No, if you look at it, we're kind of like those old veterans from wars. When we
Mm,
get together, we talk about our war years, with the years with Elvis, and that's all we talk about is the stuff that we did, I mean, the crazy, the stupid stuff we did, when we were with Elvis. And I mean, the one that comes up with, I mean, me, Rick, and David is always, remember when you did this? Yeah. Like Rick, he was, poor Rick, he was like that Southern meme. Hey, y'all watch this. But it never turned out good for him.
Oh
Like,
no. And Rick was the youngest, right?
no, Rick was the middle.
he was the
David,
middle because most people don't know. We know you're the oldest. Everybody knows that.
yep,
But so Rick was the middle, and then David was the youngest. Okay.
right. And then so like there was one time we was at Vickers Station and putting gas in our motorcycles, and Rick just finished his and hey, watch this, Elvis. He revs it up. He wants to do a wheelie, but it just got away from him, and the bike took off, and he falls over, and everybody's sitting there laughing.
Oh man.
Okay, Rick? Yeah, he gets up. But that was Rick, and David was just, you know, the one time that really this David and I started taking karate together at the same time in 1972, and we was taking it Ed Parker studio. And one time Elvis said, called and said, and Ed said, okay, Elvis just called and said for me to bring a bunch of students up to the house. And so we go to the house, and it looked like a Bruce Lee movie because everybody's got their gis on, and we're out in the yard, and everybody's doing
Mhm.
their exercises. And Elvis said, okay, we're going to do a mini tournament. Okay, so some couple of people fought. We was just doing points fighting. We weren't doing any contact. And so Elvis says, Red, David. So I'm going, oh, this is going to be interesting right here. And now, when I say David, David is the first thing Ed Parker said when he saw David, man, they sure growing big down south, don't they? David is 6'3", and at that time 235 pounds, no
Mhm.
fat, just big guy.
And Red wasn't that big, was he? 5'9",
He was
5'10",
5'11",
5'11". Okay.
5'11", and he was Red's a tough guy, more of a
Yeah,
street.
yeah.
He was more of a street fighter. So they, bow, and they go, and then they start, and Red hits David and knocks him down. Elvis looks over at him. He gets up. They, he said, "You okay?" And David said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm fine." So they do it again. Again, Red hits him, puts him down. This time, Elvis walks over to him and helps him up. Said, You gonna keep letting him do that?" And that was the green light David wanted to hear right there.
Yeah, because he knew that Red was Elvis's best friend, kind of in the group. For a
Yeah,
long
David,
time.
David had a lot of respect for him too, but then David was getting a little bit embarrassed by, wait a minute, this is twice. We're not supposed to
Yeah,
be hitting each other
yeah.
here.
It's points fight. You're not supposed to be knocking
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
So this time they went at it, and David put him down. I mean, he went at him. It wasn't pretty, that's for sure. And Red jumps up, and he's about to grab him, and Ed Parker grabs Red. No. And so he wasn't going to mess with Ed. So he looked like he was ready to explode. And Elvis is looking at David with that proud of you look.
Hmm.
And that's when the whole dynamic started to change right about that time. Where later on, Vernon kind of got his wish of, okay, we're going to get rid of some of these guys.
Right.
But it was a few years later. This was in 72. So it was around 75, 76 is when the dynamics really started changing.
Right.
And I mean, Vernon had a lot to do with the firing. Everybody says, no, Vernon didn't want half the guys around. You know, I mean, that's in that last conversation I had with Elvis. That's what we talked about. Elvis was talking about he wanted people around that he could trust, family, like, Billy Smith and Ricky and David and me, and, a few others, you know. But then, when I start talking like this, there's going to be people sit there and they're going to comment and say, well, this, and this. And one of them, there's one in particular that, well, anytime I hear Stanley, and I mean, they're no longer with us, so I'm not going to bring up their name, but that person was fired for one reason. They were playing both sides of the fence. When Elvis was home in Memphis or in LA or wherever, Palm Springs or Hawaii, this person was telling Colonel Parker what Elvis was doing.
Yeah.
He found out about
Esposito.
it.
Excuse me.
He found out about it and fired him. And I was sitting there when he did, and he gave him a check. Said
Yeah.
it was $10,000. Said, you see me walking down the road, you go to the other side. I said,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, so trying to play the middle. I mean, Elvis had his confidence in every one of the guys that was with him. And you go and tell Colonel Parker, you were betraying Elvis's trust. And that's how
Well, and
you repay
what
him.
sucks is
That's how you
that.
repay him for, I mean, treating you, I mean, like somebody made you somebody, and yet you're gonna do this? God,
Well,
no.
that's one of the beginnings of it. I mean, in a sense, that's a catalyst for Red and Sonny and Dave. It's a catalyst to betray. I mean,
I mean,
who I sneezed the name that I sneezed out. He still.
what the fans think about me, Rick and David, it doesn't really matter. There's one thing we can always sit and say and look people dead in the eye and say, we never betrayed him. We
Yeah.
never would. He came first, nobody else. I'm talking about ex-wives, girlfriends, anything else. There was only one loyalty, and that was to him, nobody else. I don't care if you like it or not. That's just the way it was,
Yeah,
and always
exactly. I
will
mean,
be.
facts are facts. I mean, and that's what I
That
always
guy was
talk
my
about.
hero.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that guy. I can't tell you how much I love him because there's no words to describe. I mean, he was my hero.
Well,
I'd do anything for that guy.
47 years since he's passed away, and you're still defending his memory, his honor, his heart. So I think the fans
And I
can
do
see
so
it.
gladly. I mean, there's certain subjects that I don't like talking about, like, him passing and stuff like that. But I mean, that's part of it. I mean, I have to learn to live with that, I mean, because people want to hear about it. I'll tell you what I know. I mean, that's all I can do.
Yeah. And once again, I mean, I'm sure it gets a little tiresome for you. I was listening to a Lamar Fike interview. It was a radio interview at one point in time. And, he was just like, let's stop talking about it. I've heard this question a million times, and that was back in the day. But I mean, I think that if people are digging for more details,
Yeah,
is there something that's missed? That's got to be frustrating,
it is.
especially Lamar wasn't even there that day. I don't think he wasn't there,
Yeah.
obviously.
That's why I like doing your show because it's refreshing for me because you're asking me stuff most people don't ask. And I mean, you're not asking me a direct question. We're having a conversation, and that's the best thing I've noticed because I had to sit back and I'll go back and I look at our first episode and the second one, and I try to like all the comments, because all you fans out there, if I hadn't got to it yet, the snow and everything, everything's getting back to normal now, so I will be going back and liking your comments and stuff like that. But I mean, it's refreshing to do something where I get to just talk about Elvis and that's it. I mean, I don't want to do an question answer thing. No, I mean, there's other people that do that online, and I mean, that's their thing. Let them do it. That's fine. Where I just soon just sit and talk about, Elvis, and the good times I had and some of the things that weren't so good. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Well, I got a question. How come there's no snow in your background? There should be little patches of snow.
I almost had that one, but it's all melted. I'm trying to do some positive projection now. I'm looking for spring to come around.
Yeah.
Come
You
on,
do
springtime.
you do not want it to be below freezing again this weekend like it's going to be. So
Oh,
maybe think positively and you can change it.
yeah. Well, it's not going to happen because Liz told me, she said, she said, there's going to be another winter front coming down. I said, really? When? She said, on the 19th. On my birthday? Great. I don't want to hear that.
Happy early birthday.
Now, I
I
got a
guess
question for you. And I got one for the fans too. Why shouldn't there be some kind of service at Graceland like they have for Elvis for Lisa? That hit me like a ton of bricks the other day. I went, well, there should be something going on for that poor little girl. I mean, that was the apple of his eye, the love of his life. And I mean, nothing. Come on, man, really? If he was here, there would be something going on. I promise you that.
And I'll tell you why it's such a travesty. When Lisa died 2 years ago, I was talking about that. Next year, I'm sure there's going to be a memorial, a service, a memoriam.
Yeah,
Because, Joel Weinshanker, I mean, once again, I don't know Joel, we'd never talked, but he always talked about how close he and Lisa was. That's what he talked, and he's
I
in
heard that
charge
too.
of doing this. So I don't understand,
Yeah. I hear a lot of talk, but I don't see any action. Where that's what TCB means. You don't talk about it, you do it. I
Yeah,
mean,
not 2029 memorial for Lisa, you know.
me, I wish there was something. I wish there was some place here in Memphis that would hold a lot of fans where we could all get together and do a thing for Elvis on his birthday, and then on the memorial of her passing, all of us get together and remember Lisa. I would love to do that for her. I mean,
Well, there's a year to plan it somehow, you know, and I mean, even if it's one of those things, it's like a flash mob. Everybody shows up on January 12th at Graceland. After the tour at 5:30, there's a Holiday Inn somewhere, whatever it
yeah,
is. And let's remember Lisa. Let's, you know, and you're there, and Billy Smith and Joe Smith are there, and people that loved Lisa, that were around Lisa, that were family. And then the fans who loved Lisa for her defending staunchly Elvis's memory, defending against the Priscilla movie. I mean, she was very upset about that movie. She
yeah,
always tried to protect her daddy.
yeah.
And so that's a wonderful idea, and I'm shocked too. I mean, it's funny. I remembered it last year that there was none, but I didn't think about it this year. It snuck up on me. It snuck up
Yeah.
on me. But you're right. Why in the heck, January 12th? You
It's
know,
only 4 days away, I mean, so come on, man. I mean, they have Elvis Week that lasts all week, I mean, so that's
So
just
she should be part of it. She should be part of the Elvis week from now on.
yeah. Well, yeah, she should be a part of everything that goes on up there, really,
Yeah.
because that was her first home right there.
I read something and I forgot where it was at that she did not want to turn, like, Lisa wanted to turn it back into a home for her. She didn't want it to be a museum when she grew up and took it over.
Right.
Now, of course, I was probably too big at that point in time, and I understand probably the emotional idea of there's no way she would have been able to maybe turn things around. That's you know.
Okay.
Did you ever hear anything about that?
While we're talking about this, I just remembered a question that I saw on one of our episodes. How come, how did we lose communication with Lisa? Because Priscilla took her away from everybody in Memphis that loved Elvis. Because Priscilla knew all Lisa's gonna hear from any of us here in Memphis, the Memphis family, is how we loved him and adored him. Lisa Marie didn't get to grow up with that.
Hmm.
After when we put Vernon in the ground, that was the last time I saw her, and it was like, and I knew, that's why that book I can't pick it up because one of my fears is come true in that book, and I sit there and I can't bring myself to do that because it breaks my heart knowing that I couldn't do anything to protect her from her own mom. Now, what does that have to say about, would you bet your butt I would have in a heartbeat. There's one person I heard that if I'd have known, he wouldn't be here anymore. Uh-uh.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
David would have heard about it, oh God, there'd be a
yeah.
greasy spot where he stood. That would be about it. But I mean, she took her away from even Billy and Joe Smith and Danny and all them. We all loved her. She was part of our family, but she was ripped away from us. And no, you cannot have contact with.
Well, part of why that she was ripped away is because from everything I've read and studied up on, Priscilla took everything that was Elvis related away from everybody in the family, all the friends. Joe Esposito sued Joe Esposito for his home videos, and once you do something like that, and I mean, I heard some stuff about skinny dipping, trying to convince Rick or David or something like that, and I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't even
It
remember
is
what that
true.
was. It is true. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't want to.
When you get into the book, Elvis, my brother, you're going to hear about it.
Okay, I haven't read it yet, but it's up here, right back, right down
It's right
here.
down
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, that was in there because I remember when I told him about it, and Priscilla found out about the book before it actually came out, and my publisher said, "Did all this really happen?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got a witness?" I said, "Yeah, his name's David." Okay. I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, Priscilla's reached out with her attorneys. As long as it's true." I said, "It's true." So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So she
Now,
she separated
go
everybody.
back to her, and I'm going to say this, and
We're talking facts, so we're not, we're like you said, we're talking facts. We're not talking down about
but
anybody.
I call it Priscilla's revenge. Because first off, she knew pretty much right away that she was not the love of his life. And so when he passed away, she's done everything she can to make him look like the the worst individual I've ever seen. That's all I've ever seen from her. Now, but see, then she'll turn around when it gets closer to Elvis week, start saying nice things, just so she. But then after that, then she'll go back. I call it Priscilla's revenge.
A woman scorned. They say hell hath no fury. And the thing is, I mean, you hear the story about when Elvis passed away, and Linda was supposed to be on the private jet, and she said, "This is my." That's what I read. This is mine now. She
Yeah.
didn't know that she was cut out of the will. She didn't know. So on top of being
She was
scorned, not
never in it.
well, I know, but she probably thought. A lot of people think.
Well, see, that's her ego.
I know. Yeah.
But I mean, she realized after Elvis passed away that I mean, that's why she's made up all this stuff. Elvis begging her to come back. No, I mean, people say, did that really happen? No, no,
Yeah.
Uh, there was, I mean, even that whole marriage thing, something we haven't discussed is most people when they get married though, when a normal marriage wanted to have what, a big family wedding, right?
Hmm.
This wasn't done that way. This was like, oh, we got to hurry up and get married, and that's what
Yeah.
happened. And then 9 months to the day,
Immaculate conception.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, enough about that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anymore.
That's fine. Well, it's in about every
I
5 or 6
like
of
I
my
like
videos.
I like leaving something for the fans to think about. Just think
Yeah.
about, what I'm saying. You don't have to believe it. Just think about what I'm saying. I mean, I'm
You
not
know,
here to
it's
try to sway anybody to believe anything.
I I had a little over 3 hour off the record conversation with Bridget Cruz the other night. I don't know if you know who that is, but Bridget was in business with Priscilla. She formed Priscilla Presley, and there's that big lawsuit going on. Okay, but I
She's
had
the one that told Priscilla to sell everything and buy copies of everything, right?
nah, kind of. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there,
That's the
but
only thing I heard about her is.
no, but the thing is, I mean, Priscilla sold the rights to her last name, but she had the rights to her likeness. Well, actually, I
Oh,
should.
wait a minute. Sold the rights to whose last name?
Priscilla sold her last name, the marketing part, and she could only use Priscilla. That's why the movie.
It was in the will that she wouldn't, I mean, in
I
Elvis'
know.
divorce decree that she wasn't supposed to use that last
So
name.
let's talk about that because that's another thing that's out there. Now, we don't have to talk about it too much, but I'm glad you brought something up about that because I mean, I understand sometimes when you've got a child with somebody else, you're gonna sometimes if the child has that last name, it's a little uncomfortable to have a different last name picking them up from school. But this wasn't a normal mom, and Lisa. So I've never seen it in writing. I've looked for it, but you would know, and those close to Elvis would know. And I've heard Sonny say that, that she was not to use the last name for profit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to look at what, she didn't start using it because the business she started when they got divorced was Biss and Bo, which is short for both of you.
Yes.
So, but, now, okay, let's look at where she wanted to live. She didn't like Memphis, she never really cared for it at all. But she wanted to stay in LA for one reason is so she thinks she's a star, and how nobody's going to pay any attention to her by that last name. So she's going to use that name Presley to further her career. That's it. I mean,
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder can see that. I mean,
Correct.
everybody,
Sorry, Stevie.
for the
We don't
album.
mean nothing by that. But yeah, I mean, the first divorce settlement, she got $100,000 and some other stuff, and she spent it so quickly. It was gone so quickly that second lawsuit where her attorneys filed intrinsic fraud versus Elvis and got more money and got had Elvis had to sell his publishing, all that stuff to pay for that. That's something I've talked about for the last year and a half that Elvis fans didn't really talk about much before, but it's true. I mean, Priscilla got her settlement. She was fine with it. And then the brilliant businesswoman that she is, she lost it all really quickly,
Yeah.
and then she needed more.
And she sued the estate. I can't remember how many times right after Elvis passed away. I got
Yeah.
all that. I mean, I got the newspaper clipping. Well, I got them on my computer. I think 3 times, when Elvis passed away.
There was somebody on Facebook that was posting legal documents of a lien that Priscilla had put on Grace in April of '77 because Elvis still owed her more money, or she was asking for more money. So, and that's one of those things where I'm not going to go in the court and dig up documents, but it wouldn't surprise me the fact that she's suing the estate after Elvis died. And that's right, because Vernon, he said
Yeah.
that he wasn't going to give her any, that she got what she,
She'd gotten everything. She'd gotten everything and more than what was originally agreed upon.
yeah, which is true.
Yeah.
First settlement, then she sued him for intrinsic fraud. I mean, people and all the Priscilla fans that are Priscilla fans, I just don't see how they're Elvis fans. They just got to be just purely Priscilla fans. Maybe there's a couple hundred out there in the world. I don't know, but they go to her shows. She charges some money to tell stories, the same story over and over again. And
It's pretty much that way with anybody in the group. That was when I say group, that means anybody that was in Elvis's life. Everybody, they all got their own little, cliques. Let's just call them what they are. I mean, there's cliques for me, Rick, and David, and Mar and Joe, and every one of them. But see, when Elvis left, it kind of, like I said, we was talking about it earlier. He was the hub that held it all together. And I mean, there was no, life insurance policy or anything like that, or anything else. And I mean, everybody that was close to Elvis was pretty much left in the will, but that will was not what we saw happen. I mean, it was like,
and
whoa, what happened here?
that's part of my conversation that I had with Bridget Cruz. She
Yeah,
was she was in every single, and I have to be careful because all this stuff is off the record, so I can't really talk about it in general. But she did say that there was, that Elvis had intended for a lot more people to be cared for.
provision. There was a lot of provisions for everybody. I mean,
Yes, and it
Billy
didn't happen.
Smith and Joe and a lot of the family members and stuff like that. And then when it all came down to it, at the reading of the will, it was just Lisa Marie, and that was it. I mean, that was a big shock to a lot of people. I mean, I didn't care about that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I mean,
because I
I
mean,
was still
you went your
grieving the
own way in the
guy.
first place.
I'm going. What? You know, if I'd have had that, if he'd left me the money that I knew he was supposed to leave, I would have probably killed myself with it.
Probably. Yeah.
So, that's a blessing to me, good. It didn't happen. But, to see the other people, the ones that I know he loved, and I mean, the guys that worked for him too, that loved him too, to see that happen the way it did. But see, I'm sorry, that's the way Vernon was, man. There was no loyalty to anybody.
And,
I
and
mean,
that's probably where it came from. Elvis probably
yeah,
had his will that Billy Smith saw and others saw, and
yeah,
then at some point, June or July or August, and Elvis is perhaps getting sicker at times. I mean, we know he had a lot of episodes 74, 75, well, 75, 76, 77, where he was in a hospital here and there and sick, and you could tell, on the June shows how bloated he looked.
yeah.
So obviously something happened, and the will either got changed and Elvis wasn't aware. Maybe he just signed it. Maybe he just signed it, not aware, and then everybody's cut out. So I don't know, but this started with Priscilla taking Lisa away from everybody, and
Right.
unfortunately, money will do that. The love of money and the love of power does that, and Lisa was the victim. She was the victim in all of this,
Oh
and
yeah.
y'all too. But Lisa, she's a little girl.
Well, I mean, things changed so bad. I mean, it was like night and day. I mean, because I went by to see Vernon about a week after Elvis had passed away, just to see how he's doing. Because I told you when I saw him the day Elvis died, I really did think he was going to pass away. And I mean, I still had feelings for Vernon because I mean, the guy raised me, you know. So I was going to just go by, but I mean, like again, I said, about 3 weeks before Elvis passed away, he called me, Rick, and David up to his room and said, Daddy and your mom are getting a divorce. We didn't know that. And that's when Elvis wanted to know what the three of us were going to do. We're staying with you. Good, good. He said, that's between them, not us. So I was just going by to see how he was doing. And I got to the gate like I had a million times before, pulled up, honked the horn. No, nothing happened. Okay, honked the horn again. Finally, somebody walked out, said, you need to call first. And I went, okay. So I backed up and there was a payphone across the street. I called and I said, this is Billy. Can I speak to Daddy? And he said, yeah. I said, hey, Daddy, what's up? He said, not much. He said, do we have an appointment today? I said, an appointment for what? I said, I was just coming by to see how you're doing. He said, well, I don't see any business, so I guess this will be it. And I just went.
Hmm.
I flipped the bird to the phone and I hung it up. And that's how it ended. Now, you think that's bad? Vernon asked David, did you kill my son? Oh, you got to be kidding me. You're going to ask that? You're really going to, I mean, because Dr. Nick and everybody else is trying to cover their tracks, you know.
Right.
Well, I think he got hit in the throat by something and that's how he died. I mean, the stuff that came out that, I mean, we didn't find out about until later in life. And it was like, are you kidding me? Really? That's what we've been relegated to right there, you know, is that this mess right here. The ones that loved him unconditionally, no matter what happened. And I mean, yeah, with mine and his relationship, all rosy. No, it wasn't. And people love to say, well, what about this? And I know what they're talking about. Hey, first of all, well, it happened. You know what? I forgave him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but and when you
You,
talk
you
about
can't
this,
you can't spend 17 years.
everybody, well, he's trying to avoid it. No, I don't avoid it. I try not to talk about it because why? There's nothing no way I can say it that makes Elvis look good in this picture. Okay. The only thing I will say is I forgave him, and I showed him I forgave him by starting to come back around. Now everybody said, well, Billy Smith said you weren't around that much. Well, Billy Smith is right. Toward the last couple of 2 years, I wasn't around because I had a daytime job, but I
Mm-hmm.
was still there on weekends and stuff like that. So, it seems like the fans want to try to get something going between me and Billy Smith or me and this person that worked for Elvis or that, and it's not going to happen. First off, is I love these people and I'm not going to get in there and air my dirty laundry on YouTube or something like that for your entertainment. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't do that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the thing of it is when they talk about the first, Elvis wasn't the only one. There was a lot more other people than that. I was the last one to find out about all of this. But you know what? I forgave him, and it kind of made Geraldo mad at me one time because I was on his show and he brought it up, and I said, "Well, I can either get up and walk out of here and look like an idiot, or I can just be truthful on this." I said, "You know what, Geraldo? Elvis did me a favor." And he didn't ask me another question after that. I just got to shut it off, okay? And that's the way I feel about it. He did me a favor.
Yeah, and of course, I haven't seen any of those, and I know some of the fans have seen some of those episodes and they've read all the books and all that stuff. So,
This was back
so
in
a
the
lot of
80s,
them are, yeah,
back in the 80s and 90s when I was doing that stuff.
yeah. And I think you said something, once about 3 or 4 episodes ago, where you said the feelings were fresh after Elvis passed away. Vernon treating you the way he did. I'm
Yeah.
sure he treated David the same way because you just said he just
And
accused
Rick too.
Dick and Rick. And of course, here's the other thing. Rick felt guilty. He felt bad. David felt guilty. He felt bad because it was that day that they were on duty.
Right.
And you are going to feel like you're supposed to protect this grown man when he's twice as old as you.
Right.
And yes, I mean, everybody tried to protect Elvis as much as he could. They defended him on the road and when there was crazy people trying to assassinate him and at home and to protect him from himself as well at times, you know? And so sometimes people grab a hold of that as guilt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I tried to explain to Rick and David both. We were kids ourselves. I mean, but I can't tell you how many times, everybody thinks, well, nobody said anything to Elvis about it. And, I would have done this. No, you wouldn't. We all, trust me, everybody that was ever with him that cared about him did say something. But when the man sits there and tells you and looks you straight in the eye and said, do you think I got here where I'm at today by listening to anybody? I know what I'm doing. When he
And
said
Elvis,
that,
he believed it. Yeah, you guys would
I mean,
step. He believed he knew what he was
21
doing.
years old, 23 years old, I go, okay, I
Yeah,
believe you, Elvis. If you say you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. And I left it alone. I
yeah.
knew better, but I mean, why should I get him upset? You know?
Well, and look, once again, I'm not happy Red and Sonny and Dave wrote their book. I'm not, and because if they would have just talked about, let's just say the drug use, the too many pills, all that stuff, and he was, getting sicker and sicker and sicker. If they had left it at that, that would have been one thing. But they put all the details about this and that and the Priscilla and the young girl together and all this, all the other sort of details they got put in there, which to me, that's the betrayal. If they were seeking out help for Elvis, because I know there's some of the people you mentioned said something to Elvis. Red said it to Elvis. Sonny said it to Elvis. They tried to get him to
Everybody
be
that
healthier.
worked for him did. Everybody that was up on that hill did.
Yeah,
And I call it hill because that's what Elvis called it. You know, everybody on that hill said something to him. I
yeah.
mean, everybody, even the maids. I mean, we all love this. I mean, here's the thing that gets me. All these years, 47 years later, almost going close to 50 years, and people still don't know who this guy is. They have no idea. Unless you were there, you will never know. And we can't even, it's like trying to explain the impossible.
It's like a maze. It's
Yeah.
a maze in a
It's,
sense.
and it's, when we talk about Elvis, people look at us like we're crazy, but we were there. It was a crazy world. Yeah. And I mean, it was his world. He created it, and that's the way he wanted it. If you didn't like it, you could have came off that hill anytime. That gate opened both ways, in and out. You could leave anytime you want to.
But
I
but
mean,
y'all knew that he wanted y'all to stay. He wanted you there. If he had
yeah,
you there, he wanted you there.
yeah. Well, I mean, Rick and David were, I mean, Rick started in 1970, 71, and then David started in 72. I started at 72. And then, but, I didn't want to be around all that much because, I
Yeah.
wanted to show him I could do it on my own. Because I knew how he was looking at things, and I knew, he had his doubts about some of the people. I mean, he doubted quite a few of the people on that, that worked for him. And I mean, even Vernon was very influential on that part of it because he didn't think Elvis needed maybe 6 or 7 people at the most to be around him.
Yeah, I mean, the less people, the less
Vernon,
money going
I mean,
out.
that's the
Yeah.
way he was, and that's what he kept pushing on to Elvis all the time. You don't need this many people. I mean, the thing that gets me is they make it out like they was there. No, they weren't. As soon as the tour was over, they all went back to their homes in LA.
Hmm.
And who was there? Rick and David and Joe, Billy and Joe, and
And you
Red.
on the weekends and stuff. Yeah, and sometimes
Everybody else, that's it. Everybody went home.
yeah.
So it's a big old it, the character that they're trying to portray him today is not the same person I grew up with. They're trying to present this woke individual. Elvis was the most alpha male I've ever met in my whole life. When he sang the song U.S. Male, he meant it. He was proud of his country. He wasn't afraid to tell anybody that. I mean, you couldn't even mention Jane Fonda in front of him because he would go off. You talk about getting mad, you say something about her. I mean, and what she did in Vietnam, and it may not have been right, but you know what? Our country is involved in it, and you stand by your country no matter what. I mean, that's it. I mean, this guy that everybody's trying to make him out to be is just like, this isn't the same Elvis I know, you know. And I mean, that Baz Luhrmann movie. I mean, that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, people, it's been some time now since I can say what I really want to now because when at first I said that's fine, at least everybody's talking about Elvis again. That's great. I love it when people do that. But when you try to make him out to be like this weak individual they made him out in that movie,
Mhm.
no, he would never cuss like that in front of his mom. Good, that's disrespecting Elvis and his mom. So you've done that part in that scene right there, and then to show him begging somebody to come back, no, he didn't do that. That's only in her fantasy world, not Elvis's real world.
Yeah.
Uh, no, calm down, Billy. Calm down.
I know, and I felt the same way. I mean, they
I get
skipped
so
over Linda Thompson.
I
They
get
skipped over
so
Linda,
frustrated.
skipped over you.
I get so frustrated at the individual that the picture they're trying to, the painting's already been done. Elvis.
Mhm.
It's like trying to add paint to a Rembrandt. You can't do that. So don't try, but see, that's why I go back to Priscilla's Revenge. And she's done everything she could to do this, this, and this, and change the narrative on Elvis. She's trying to rewrite his story, history. You can't rewrite history, Priscilla. I'm sorry. You can't do that. You're not allowed that. You can in your own little world, but you can't in the Elvis world. Nobody's going to believe it to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, not a true Elvis fan. But the thing is, that's the danger of it, is that the people that are casual Elvis fans that want to believe in a fairy
Oh,
tale, you
okay,
know.
let's talk about Elvis fans for just a moment here, okay? Now, the to me, a true Elvis fan tries to pretty much be like the person they're a fan of, right? Loving, forgiving, like Elvis.
Hmm.
Not these people that's out there stabbing people in the back and trying to make boost their ratings on YouTube by saying all kinds of nasty stuff about those around him. And would you please talk nasty about this guy in this that worked for him and this and that? That's not an Elvis fan. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And Elvis would be, it's like Lamar Fike once said. Somebody was talking to him and said, well, if Elvis was alive, he'd stop him. He said, if Elvis was alive, if he was standing at the end of the line, he'd walk up and talk to me. He wouldn't know who you are. I can tell you that right now. The same here. He'll walk up and talk to me, but these other people that are hiding behind this little computer screen right here, trying to build themselves up and belittle all those that were around him that he loved. Oh no, you don't do that. You can do it, and but I'm gonna tell you, you're not a true Elvis fan for doing that. Even Priscilla. I mean, I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say in front of him about her right now, and he knows it. Half the stuff I'm saying is came from him, anyways.
Right, right. But yeah, like I said, you really do a good job. Not really. I mean, you're talking
Did,
facts.
did, did
You
Elvis
know.
love her? Yes, at one time.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
no doubt, no doubt. He wouldn't have moved to Graceland if he
it,
didn't
it
have a.
faded.
Yeah.
It faded. And it's just like I told you in I think our first episode. The one thing in common with every woman that was ever in Elvis's life is what? He
The
made
one
them
thing
feel
in
like
common
what?
with every.
He made them feel like what?
Oh,
What?
she was the only one. Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Yeah.
Every one of them say the same thing. I
Well,
mean,
this is what I think. I think that Priscilla loved the image. Elvis loved what he thought he was getting, but she was different and he was different, and it didn't work out. Because she loved this rock and roll rebel. Everybody she dated before supposedly was very rebellious in Germany. And then he thought he was going to get a subservient, sweet, virginal person that was going to be a homemaker, that was going to be there for him all the time. And she probably was not. She wanted to be somebody special, like she's trying to be now. And so when you have a relationship that starts out with two things that are not what they're supposed to be, it ain't gonna work.
yeah.
you know. And then they tried to make it. I don't know. You saw it.
It's
And
I mean, there's so many different directions I could go with this, but I want to take the high road because, like I said, I don't want to bash anybody. I mean,
sure.
uh, you know, even
But
though,
he did love her, and I'm sure that you saw he was excited about her, very excited for a while. I'm
yeah,
sure.
for just like he was with everybody else. I mean, just like
Yeah,
I mean, he was excited with Linda.
yeah.
Like I said, he called me up to his bedroom one time and he was looking at a picture. I said, "Oh, well, she's downstairs in the kitchen. What are you doing? Looking at a picture." But that's the way he was. I mean, that first year or so is you're on cloud nine, with that individual, and that's the way it
Yeah.
was with him with every one of them. I remember one time he got mad at me when he was dating Sheila Ryan, and he got mad at me because I was late picking him up at the airport, and she was on the plane, and he was going to introduce me to her. He wanted me to meet her, and I show up late, and I get there a little bit late. Where you been? I had something I had to take care of at work before I could get here. Why? He said, well, you little blank blank. I had somebody I wanted to introduce you to. I said, oh man, I'm sorry. And then everybody was Rick and David. Billy, you should have met this girl, man. Sheila, she's tough. Like Elvis, one of Elvis's favorites. She's tougher than a nickel steak. And I saw the pictures, and she was. I mean, he dated a lot of great looking women. I mean,
I mean, he had an eye for a beautiful woman for sure.
yeah,
I mean,
that was his weakness was women. he loved them. God
You know,
bless.
well, you said something about the first year. You know, always being real special. I mean, I think once in a while, when I
Yeah,
think back
when
about,
you that first year of a relationship, yeah.
yeah.
No, that's the pink clouds, the fluffy cloud era, the whole thing.
I know I was gonna say, how much do you think was in Elvis's mind about, do they love me for me or for my fame? Because that's another. I'm gonna go backwards. The power of the story of the "Are You Lonesome Tonight" Lucy the Barbara thing, and let's just say Dixie Locke, 1953. You know,
Yeah,
and June Winneko, 56. Elvis was pretty famous in 56 already, but yeah, Dixie Locke, Barbara Hearn, those two young girls, and then the story that we've read and talked about, the Lucy the Barbara. To me, when I look back, if I would have became super famous, you know, and I did, and I wasn't. I was a B star, a B minus star, C plus,
yeah,
whatever, But I had a very soft affinity in my heart for people that loved me for me when I was trying to do something, who I was, before I was somebody, and I think like for me, meeting my wife is just as talented as I am. She's a beautiful girl, just as talented. So we got to share each other's talent, and I was never jealous of my wife. She was never jealous of me. Elvis didn't have that. He didn't. He had girls that were pretty.
yes.
He did. Well, Anne Margaret, I know. Anne
And
Margaret, I know.
don't
I
forget.
feel that way too.
Okay.
But something stopped it. A forced marriage or whatever, a rushed marriage stopped that. And then Anne Margaret gets married a week later.
Yeah, but they still converse back and forth.
Yeah, they talked. Yeah, but what I was saying is, I wonder how much the year thing, the girls wearing out. And then Linda Thompson was 4 years. She's obviously very special. And she gave her life to Elvis for 4 years, took care of him, loved him, baby talk, all that other stuff that made you guys sick. The
Yeah.
baby talk, But I think that the majority of the girls, the other girls, were just kind of like there because they were fans in a sense. And who's not going to want to be with your idol, your fan? As good looking as he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, we had that discussion 2 days before he passed away because I was talking to him. Do you think I'll ever find true love? Because I mean, I knew there was a lot of girls in Memphis that went out with me only because who I was related to. I knew that. I mean, and and when I said that to him, he said, "Now you know how I feel." And I went, "Wow, I never really thought of that until that when he said that." And I went, "Wow, I never really thought of that." You know, and that's why, that's that interview for the 72 concert in New York, Madison Square Garden, where the image is one thing, the man's another. I mean, those words resonate in my mind when I hear him every time he's saying that, because he's trying to let everybody know, you know, yeah, the image is real, but so is the man. The man has feelings though. The image doesn't really. So,
If you cut me, I bleed. Basically,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's what he was trying to get across to that lady that asked that question. It was, I'm a human being with feelings, I mean, yeah, I do care what people think and say, Um, everybody does. I mean, there's people that say, I don't care. Yeah, you do. Everybody does. I mean, we're all human. We all have that need to, be loved and, and to love and to be loved. We all do. And Elvis was no different than anybody else. Yeah, was he the biggest rock star ever lived? Yeah, but he still had feelings, and it didn't take a lot to hurt his feelings because I saw it happen a lot, and, it always bothered me when I saw it because I'm sitting there going, how could people be this cruel to a guy that's all he wants to do is just love you and have fun with you, and you're acting like an idiot, I mean, why, you know?
Well, yeah, sometimes it's the alcohol making people do that. There's
Some
the,
of a lot of them didn't drink, so they were
whatever
just
the
natural born. And I can't say that word.
now, yeah, natural born rear end people. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right,
Well,
brother. We've
it's
been
been a
talking.
great. Yeah, I don't even know what time it is, but it's probably time to cut it. What time is it?
It is
It's.
7:48 on my end,
I
so
might have to break this up into a part one, part two, because we just chit chatted almost 2 hours.
yeah. That it was fun. I mean, I like doing this because I mean, you take me places that I don't expect to go, and I mean that's to me that's fun. I mean, I wasn't expecting to talk about half the stuff I talked about tonight, but I said, you know what? I'm talking to a friend.
Well, I'm glad to go on a drive with you, brother. You
Yeah,
know,
we got
so
to.
I
I don't
appreciate you
drive as
sharing.
fast as I used to anymore now.
No, 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 not me neither, man. 70, 75, 80 is the fastest I go, and I'm thinking, man, a lot of things can go wrong at 80 miles an hour.
Exactly.
You know,
But yeah, anytime you come to Memphis, let me know and we'll go through Graceland one time. How about
once it gets warmer for both you and me. I'm
you?
the same.
Exactly.
I'm from the desert of California, 123 degrees and 105 at midnight. That's what
Yes.
I'm used to.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah,
but it's like everybody says that it's a dry heat though.
it's a dry heat. Yeah, you're put in an oven being baked, so it's still not it's not good. I remember I used to all my cars had no air conditioning, and I'd
No,
roll the windows down, and it
yeah,
was miserable when you roll the windows down out there. But you come to Tennessee with the humidity, and you roll the windows down, it feels great because your sweat turns into air conditioning.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna cut it off. Thanks again for joining us, Billy, and
Hey, brother.
we will talk soon. Hey, by the way, the your second book, I gave it away as well, so I'm
Oh,
still
you
waiting
did?
back
Okay.
to yeah.
Did I'm trying to remember the winner of the first one. What was her? Sherry Lynn.
I believe so. I'm trying. I've drawn a
Oh,
blank.
she
I'm great
got
with.
it.
She hasn't messaged me yet, but I'm maybe next time when we talk, they'll both have gotten it. I gave
Okay.
away the second one on the Ronnie McDowell. I did a conversation with Ronnie McDowell,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, and so somebody got a book from there. So uh,
Okay.
and she was
So yeah,
excited. She
I
was
saw he had a thing going on in Memphis at the Audubon House.
yeah. He
Oh,
invited me down to come to it, and I couldn't make it. I had some stuff going on in the taping, but nice fella. He truly loves Elvis and as well, and
yeah.
um, but
He's
yeah,
I've heard some
maybe
of his
next
stuff.
year.
I've heard some of his stuff. You know, he's I think didn't they hire him to do some vocals for a movie or something?
Yeah, he sang all this stuff in the Elvis movie with Kurt Russell. He was the
Oh, okay.
voice, the sing, and then he did the Elvis and Me, of course, the
Okay.
Priscilla thing. But he had the song "The King Is Gone," I think in '77 that came
Okay.
out, and then "Older Women Make Beautiful Lovers." That's his song, the country music song. Older women, yeah.
If I was, here's what, because everybody says, always ask me music. He said, is there a song that you can think of that came out after Elvis passed away that he would have done? And the one that comes to mind is To All the Women I Loved Before.
To all the girls I've loved, yeah,
Yeah,
the
all the girls I loved before.
Julio Iglesias,
You
yeah.
get it. Why don't you sing that as Elvis, man? Because I tell you what, I mean, that would be one song I promise you Elvis would have recorded that one right there because it fit him perfect.
I'll work on that because it's so hard to get Willie Nelson's voice out of my head and Julio Iglesias. Willie
Yeah.
Nelson's "To All the Girls I Love Before." So
Yeah.
well, I'll try to have that done by the time we have our next conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be great. I mean, to hear Elvis's voice sing that. I mean, wow, man.
Hmm.
You talk about writing a song for a guy. I mean, like everybody thinks My Way was perfect for Elvis, which it is. I mean, he did it his way, you know. But, I would love to hear it.
I've never heard anybody say that, so I'll try it. I mean, I don't think I've ever tried to sing a song like Elvis that Elvis didn't do because
Right.
it's easier to emulate what you've heard
Right.
than what you've never heard.
Okay.
I'll try it.
All the
Hey, brother.
girls I once caressed, and may I say I've held the best.